Well, I mean, it's a little tricky for the EU. Spain is an EU member. Catalonia is not an EU member, so naturally the EU is going to support Spain over Catalonia. And there are a number of separatist movements within Europe, and of course the EU opposes them all on principle. If there is some way forward for Catalonia to achieve independence, it's possible, but challenging. So that's a big threat to the EU. It's a bigger threat to the EU in a way than Brexit was. Brexit was legal, and this may not be, quote, legal according to the Spanish Constitution and what seems to me a significantly activist Spanish Supreme Court. So it means that people can go for it. And of course, if Brexit fails, as it seems to be in the process of doing, since to a large degree Brexit was about immigration and it's not being touched, nothing's moving forward. See, when the government wants to increase taxes, it happens like that. When they're going to grant some particular liberty, which they don't want to, well, you see, it's just going to take a long, long time. So, yeah, if people look at Brexit and see it failing, and people look at Catalonia, if it achieves independence and see it succeeding outside the framework of the rule of law, well, that's going to hit some gas in directions that the EU does not want people to go. So, what's happening? Well, it's the Atlas Shrugged story. So there's this thing called the Program for International Student Assessment, PISA scores. In Spain, the further north you go, the higher these scores are, and it's not insignificant. I don't know if that's because in the south there was a caliphate up until the 15th century. I don't know. But there's smarter people in the north, more economically productive, richer, and therefore with more resources to pillage and take from the north to the south. So you have the self-interest of the smart people who wish to detach themselves from the increasing predation through the welfare state and through other income redistribution programs of the people who are less intelligent and less successful. Because it can't work, right? I mean, if you give smart people lots of money, they tend to have fewer kids. If you give less smart people lots of money, they tend to have more kids. And in a democracy, this means that the less intelligent gain more and more power until when, right? Now, this idea that there's this rule of law, I mean, I don't buy it at all. They're not enforcing the borders. They're not vetting the, quote, refugees, the migrants and all of that. And they're not really enforcing the laws about any of that. I mean, to be a refugee, you have to stay in the country you first landed. How many people are coming from other places into Spain? Are they enforcing their borders? No. Why? Because migrants are going to vote for the left. And that is about taking money from the rich and giving it to the poor, whereas the Catalaners want to leave. And so that's rich people taking their resources, which the government wants to pillage to buy votes. So it is around that particular issue. They're not going to stop. Catalonia recognizes what's going on, and the migrant crisis may be driving it more. And so we have this unstoppable force meeting this immovable object. It is going to escalate from here. Because people in Catalonia are good at business and good at trade and good at finances and high IQ in general, according to indications, they can count and they can look at the national debt of Spain. It's over €1 trillion, like 1.2, 1.3 trillion US dollars. So that is around 23,000 euros per citizen. The Spanish debt, to put that in context and perspective, is about 107% of GDP at the moment. And so the idea that it's just going to magically will its way out of this recession when it's taking on a bunch of migrants who are going to end up on welfare, and you have people attempting to break free of this descending, quasi-socialist state from hell, it's going to increase this. Just to get a sense of the Spanish debt, well, what does it mean? So if you take like dollar bills representing this debt and you wrap it around the earth, it would go around the earth over 4,900 times. Let's take another way of looking at it. You take these dollar bills, just, really, really flat, lay them on top of each other, and they make a pile 137,659 kilometers tall, or 85,537 miles high. So that's pretty big. Something very powerful is happening here as well. Law, in its current context, its state context, law politically is a kind of religion. if you're religious and you look at a religious text, it has special power and meaning to you. It has the capacity to dictate your actions, your thoughts, what hits you in those sleepless nights. Your conscience is modified and affected. If you stop believing in that God, if you stop believing in that religion, then they're just old words on a page. They have no particular power to compel you. You may have some reverence for them as part of your history and so on, but they do not have a living power to affect your daily decisions. So law is a kind of religion, and if people stop believing in it, it ceases to have power. Now, Christianity, at least, does not have, armed police to enforce its edicts. That's for other religions. But when people stop believing in the law, they stop self-regulating according to the magic spell called the law, then the troops are going to have to come in, and the truncheons are going to have to swing, and the power of the state is revealed for what it is. Everything the state does is backed up by the threat of coercion. That's what makes it different from a charity. That's what makes it different from a church in the West. So here's the big fundamental question. Europe has, for a long time, been largely self-governed by people's respect for the law. Now, here we have in Catalonia, people looking at the Supreme Court of Spain and saying, don't care. Your words don't beat my passion. Your letters don't beat my history. Your paper does not set fire to my freedoms. This is the real threat. This is why it must be repressed, attacked, and opposed. What happens when people stop respecting the rule of law? I have a bad feeling we're going to find out.